So with your permission, and assuming we can work the technology, we are planning to record this so that the people who are not here can hear it, and maybe we can listen to it again. So thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
I think you need to unmute him.
No, he has to unmute himself.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Hugh. Thank you for such a nice welcome. It's a warm welcome. It's nice to meet you all. I'm David O'Farrell. I'm the head teacher of St Bernadette's Catholic Primary and Nursery School in the London Borough of Harrow. I've been head here now for 15 years. I was previously head for 5 years of Our Lady of Grace Junior School in Neasden, in Brent. And I'm now my 29th year of being a teacher. Going very quick. I was here at St Bernadette's 20 years ago as the deputy head, and I came back 15 years ago. And the change in the area is remarkable. The levels of poverty are on the rise, and we need everyone's help. So I just wanted to say thank you to you all for your donation that we have received so far. It was really nice to meet Hugh and Richard the other day to describe what's going on in the borough and what's going on for St Bernadette's and how we're trying to support the families in need at the moment. It's my biggest job at the moment, is trying to support families in need on top of everything else, obviously COVID and everything else that goes on, and trying to educate these children as well at the same time. So it's a bit full on at the moment. It's probably the most difficult time in my teaching career. It's definitely my most difficult time as a head teacher at the moment. It's just trying to make sure that everybody is on a level playing field, that everybody can access education fully, and that we live in a world where we are following the gospel values, trying to live them out and trying to provide for all. And as I said, through your donations, through donations of other people, we're able to do that at the moment to a certain extent. In Harrow, especially this area, poverty is on the rise, particularly hidden poverty. Hidden poverty I describe as not the work that Marcus Rashford's been doing for the free school meals. You've heard about him and the work he's done. Children who are on the free school meals and break register are recognised, and schools get an income of £2,500 per child who can receive free school meals to support the child during the course of their education, so that we can provide them with meals, with uniform, access to trips, etc., so that they play a full part in school life. Hidden poverty are the areas of the children who cannot access free school meals, and in St Bernadette's and a lot of the Harrow schools, that is a large percentage of our children these days. They are the children who they can't access free school meals because their parents are in low-paid jobs. In St Bernadette's at the moment, the biggest numbers here are Eastern European children. Our Romanians have just overtaken the Poles. We have about 180 children who are Eastern European, and they're from backgrounds where the parents are often working in low-paid jobs. If they were to claim free school meals to enable us to support them, they would lose their working tax credit. So that can be worth £300 or £400 a month to them. So they refuse to do that because free school meals to them is worth £10 a week. So the money doesn't add up for them. So they won't do it. So we have to support them in different ways. So we have had to enter into different arrangements with different people I'll come on to in a minute. Recent figures for COVID show that in Harrow, there are 38,000 people who've been furloughed. That furlough scheme comes to an end at the end of this month, as you're well aware. And not all of those 38,000 people are going to return to their jobs. So there's a huge worry in the borough about levels of unemployment. And of those 38,000 people, they think about 1,000 of them will come from families that will be made homeless. So already Harrow's housing stock is completely overstocked. When one of my families loses their accommodation in Harrow, they often have to leave the school because they're moved out to places. Last year we had one family move to Birmingham because Harrow had no accommodation. Lots of families go out to Luton Way or somewhere further up the A41 where there is some form of housing. It's a huge issue locally with rents as well. We had two families last year where the rents went, in one case, a two-bedroom flat went from £1,200 a month up to £1,900 a month, and with no warning. And another one was a similar one. So the families were made homeless and then had to leave the school and had to leave the area. We have our surrounding area is it's typical of Harrow, really. It's a mixture of semi-detached houses, 3 bedrooms, with some extended, and then some flats. The 3-bedroom ones are now multiple occupancy, and so are the flats. We had a family the other day who had to leave the school because one of the families went back to Romania, and so they were looking for another family to share. They were looking for another family to share a 2-bedroom flat, and there were 4 children in the flat and 4 adults. So their arrangements were just remarkable. A roof over their heads was all they wanted, and get the children to school. And you have to respect that. So the education is very, very high on the agenda. As a consequence, about 7 years ago, or not the consequence of now, but as a consequence of the rising levels of poverty, we formed our own food bank. We're the only school in the diocese at the time to have our own food bank. Basically, one of my governors had his own import and export food business, and we bought a big shed and put it onto a concrete slab so it would be dry, and then we put it in shelving units, and we've since run a food bank. So we've had about 10 families using on a regular basis until the current crisis. We're up to about 25 at the moment. So that meant that I didn't have enough food in it, because our food was very generously coming from the church. The church has been All Saints Parish in Kenton. The parishioners there have been collecting food for the food bank for other food banks, but the parish priest there decided that it would be more useful to send it directly to school. So we've had families come in here, and they come in on a regular basis. We have a huge problem with dignity. People embarrassed to use it. The original why they stopped going to the main Harrow food bank and the Brent food bank was because of the means testing that took place and how difficult they found that. There's no means testing with our one. They're given the key, or when we were allowed to give them keys. Now it's a padlock we have to open beforehand, and they use the food bank, and they bring their bags and they take what they want. During the lockdown, we were a tremendous link with Morrison's. Morrison's have been very, very generous, and our food bank is full at the moment for the first time. So by full, I mean we have plenty of pasta, plenty of rice, etc., beans, soup, all these types of dry food. And we had lots of people donating the people who were shielding were donating the boxes they were receiving. So as a consequence of that, we now have things like soap and toothpaste to offer. And it's used. But it's not, we're not meeting enough people because there are more than 25 families, but the embarrassment side of things is holding them back. And also we have an issue with the different palettes involved. So for example, my Eastern European families have a different palette to the Asian families. They have a different palette to the British families and the Irish families involved in the school. So it's trying to cater for all at the moment. I need to run my own Sainsbury's within the school, so my own Morrison's, but to offer them a variety, but we do what we can. We also have linked up with Fair Share, an organisation that provides fresh food for schools on a once a week. So tomorrow morning I'll go to Tesco's in Preston Road, and they'll give me their food from today that's left over. So we'll have bread, we'll have milk, we send out a lot of cakes, which is not good, and then we have bananas and broccoli in mixed condition. But we put it out for the parents in the morning, and we can get rid of most of it, which is great. It goes to families. So that's been working for 7 years now. It's been getting bigger. I was asked by Hugh and by Richard, what is the most effective way? I wrote a proposal back in February time when Caritas came to see me. Caritas is the Westminster organisation for working with people in need. I'm sure you're all aware of Caritas. They do a tremendous job. Not the Lent just gone, excuse me, the one before that, the Cardinal's Lenten Appeal raised £150,000 approximately, and they wanted to know what to do with it. They wanted some ideas, so they were running food days here for us. But it was a token gesture, and it was, although it was a nice day, it was not serving any real purpose in the long run. So I managed to convince them to convert that to a voucher scheme, and that voucher scheme was taken on during the lockdown. And I'm delighted to say that it was converted into vouchers, and over 3,000 families have benefited within the diocese and beyond from the voucher scheme. The voucher scheme works as follows. You can apply to Caritas. They'll give you £500 worth of Sainsbury's vouchers or Morrison's vouchers or Asda, whichever one you choose. And then you have to put in a spreadsheet and return it to them, giving them details of who you've given the forms to. We've had 3 lots of those, and that's been a tremendous benefit to our families. And it's got them through, someone who's got them through the lockdown period. One example, the funding we were given from the Catenians was £250. And the day I received that was the day we were about to have a family evicted although there were meant to be no evictions at all during lockdown. However, this family were being evicted, and the money went straight to them, and they're still living in the accommodation that they were in at the time, and they are still members of our school community. So your donation there made a tremendous difference to one family at that time, which is tremendous. So I really appreciate that. Rent in the local area is a huge issue. I spoke to a couple of landlords recently, and I just asked them how they can come up with figures of 1,900 for a 2 or 3 bedroom flat locally, and the basic answer was supply and demand. I understand economics, but from a Christian point of view, it was very difficult to what's happening to these families, and they're being made homeless, and they're really being left to it. They're hugely worried about Brexit at the moment because they think they're of this view they're just going to be thrown out, and trying to reassure them. We had one boy run into school when the country first voted to leave. I had one boy run into school every day and arriving in tears, and that's because his mum and dad had told him he had to run, because if anybody from this country got hold of him, they would beat him up. So there were all these ridiculous scenarios. So we've managed to create a situation where with support. I have a parent ambassador for our Romanian community, for our Polish community, and for our British community, and their role is to support these families when it comes to form filling, or in the case of Romanian and Polish, to do translation as well. I did have a Tamil translator as well, but unfortunately she left. But the other two worked very well, and really surprising the amount of British people in my school who actually can't read or write. So we support them through our own ambassadors as well. And then, I mean, we could talk for ages, but my last point to you is just to give you an anecdote. We have 2 girls in our school, and they came to us. They were victims. Their mum was a victim of domestic violence in Northamptonshire, and they were placed in Harrow. And the girls arrived 2 years ago, and they've settled and they've done very well. But they're on the verge of having to leave because they were moved from. They couldn't be accommodated anymore in the accommodation they were in. They've been moved to Fry and Barnet, and they're in a flat there. When I met Mum during the lockdown, she came to use the food bank, and I gave her some vouchers. She broke down into tears and told me it was the first act of kindness that she had had in months. Because what happened was she'd been moved. I didn't know she'd been moved because it was during lockdown and her children weren't in school. And she was moved to a flat where the windows didn't open, apart from one. And the one window that opened out onto the, it was a ground floor flat. It opened out onto the pathway outside where the bus stop was. And she left the window open, and she had everything stolen from the inside of her flat by people outside. So she couldn't open the windows, and that was in springtime. So you can imagine what sort of summer they had. And then the other day, one of the daughters was in the medical room, and I asked her how she was because her back was hurting. And she informed me that they couldn't travel from Fry and Barnet every day because it could take them up to 2 hours. So they were staying with Mum's aunt in Colindale. And I said, oh, that's nice. And where are you sleeping? They were in the front room, the 3 of them, and they were on the couch and on the armchairs. I was thinking of like a nice armchair with arms so they could lie across. I said, how do you sleep in the armchair? And she sleeps sitting up because there is no way. She does that from Monday to Friday. And I said, oh, you must be delighted it's Friday then, because, you know, I mean, we all like Friday. I said, did you go? And she said, yeah, I'll get to sleep in my bed, but it's always really cold there because the heating doesn't work. So then that becomes my job to contact housing to get the landlord to come and fix their housing. But so although we made tremendous progress with that family by supporting them with their need of poverty, it's a continuous cycle at the moment. And the cycle of poverty is just one that is just shocking. So I hope that's given you a little bit of an insight into, obviously not all my families here are living in poverty, thank God, but there is a larger and larger and larger percentage. I'd say we're up to at least a quarter at the moment who we're having to support in some way. No child who comes to our school during the course of the year who joins us as an in-year admission brings their own uniform. We have to supply uniform for them because they can't afford. They've literally just come to the country. They're trying to find accommodation. We provide uniform for them. So this is the situation we're in at the moment. So I really appreciate the help of you, and thank you for letting me. I'm happy to listen to any questions or take any, or expand upon any points further.
Okay, Hugh,
Yeah,
we'll take some questions now.
yeah, sure.
Okay, if
Anybody
people have got questions, it'd be difficult because I'm keeping it on speaker view so that we only have the one screen. So Hugh, if you've got all the screens up in front of you.
Yeah, I've got them all there. Does anybody like to speak? I'll keep flicking and see if I can see hands come up. No, we've stunned an awful lot of people into silence. David, one of the things you said to us when we were asking you about giving out vouchers, they're £10 vouchers, aren't they? And you would normally give a family, what, 3 of those?
Normally 3. Yeah.
Yeah. And if most of us think about what you spend on a trip to the supermarket, that doesn't go a terribly long way if you're feeding a family.
And I always insist upon them buying something nice, like an ice cream or chocolate. I know that sounds a little bit silly, but the children don't get it unless they're with us. They don't get anything like that because it's a focus on basics. There are of course the families who we support who they are smoking and they are spending the money on the wrong things, but that's not the child's fault. That's what I have to keep remembering. And sometimes it's difficult because you get backed into a corner and the behaviour of the parents doesn't help. But in the majority of cases we deal with, the parents help us because of the current situation they're in.
You mentioned, David, about what you're full of at the moment in your food bank is you've got lots of pasta, lots of rice, lots of tins of soup. What would be the top 3 things that you don't have that are non-perishables that you think would be useful? Or would they be more like the toiletry roll, toiletry items?
Yeah, well, one thing we're lacking at the moment is cereal, decent cereal. I'm getting by that I mean we get lots of cereals that the supermarkets don't want because they can't sell it, and I can't get rid of it here either. So because they don't want to eat it. So things like cornflakes and Rice Krispies, the children really enjoy Cheerios, that type of thing. We're short of. And then the treats, like biscuits, for example. We don't have many of them at all. And then basic toiletries. Toilet roll would be a good one, or kitchen roll.
Okay, and things like maybe shampoos, those type of things. Toothpaste, shampoos.
Toothpaste, yes, not shampoo, because people are quite fussy about shampoo. I do the shopping for my family the week, and I can never get the right shampoo. I have 3 girls. I have 3 girls and a wife, so yeah. As you can see from my hair, I don't have too many problems, but from theirs is a big problem. So,
Hugh, anyone other questions?
Yeah. Ian, did you have your hand up? Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Turn your mic on. It's not on yet. You have to turn the mic back on.
Sorry. There.
Right. I can hear you
right.
now.
Sorry, David. 2 questions. One, where would we take our donations of food and items to your food bank? To the school?
Yes. Yeah. Just before lockdown, we had our own basket in reception, and that was beginning to take off. But any donations, yeah, we would be grateful for if they would take it to the school or to the parish. Father Hector will take them in as well.
I'm sorry, you're very soft. I'm hardly hearing you.
Father Hector in the parish will take them in, or you're more than welcome to come to school.
Okay. The second question. Sorry, second question. Rent. I mean, the donations or the what we actually donated to you. Were you able to use that to pay people's rent?
One person, yeah, directly. The day we received it was the day I needed the money, and we were able to give it straight out to them. And
so a financial donation would or could be used for the same thing, to pay somebody's rent so they stay in Harrow, they stay in a Catholic school. Then we're talking about an awful lot of money in as well, which I would appreciate the offer, but it's not viable because we're talking about £1,900 a month in some cases, but the 250 at the time was the money needed to pay the rent. Okay. So tremendous. We had a conversation about this. What's more important, the food bank or the vouchers? The vouchers are more important because that's where the dignity comes. Because by me being able to email out vouchers and then being able to use them like a gift voucher, so nobody knows in Sainsbury's, they don't know they're vouchers for people in need. They just see them as a voucher that could have been a gift voucher, and they just use normally. There's no questions asked about them. They just scan the code and it's fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, David. Thank
Dignity is protected though. As you were all aware, dignity is a huge aspect, important aspect in life, and it's been taken away from these people by the fact they have to come asking in the first place. And if with food banks, food banks are tremendous, but the voucher scheme works better for us.
you. Yeah, I like. Yeah, good. Thank you, Ian. Hugh, one more question. If anyone's got one more.
Anybody else? Can't see anybody with their hand up.
I'll ask
No.
David. You mentioned Father Hector. Is there a box at the back of the church for leaving donations?
Yes, there is. Yeah, in the porch.
In the porch. Okay, that's All Saints Church on Kenton Road.
Yes.
People can leave it there or take it directly to the school.
But this isn't just about St Bernadette's tonight, is it, Hugh? You're supporting 5 schools, so the idea.
I mean, we're supporting 5 schools, but St Bernadette's was the first one that we got to know of. St Bernadette's, I think, has been doing it for longer than anybody.
But other schools are beginning sorry, Hugh. Sorry. Other schools are beginning to join us now. Like St Gregory's, for example, they're just about to put in a big container in their car park area, which will be a big food bank. And then we have another school in contacted me from Ealing the other day, so it's beginning to take off. But the voucher scheme, I've gone back to Caritas, and we're asking the Lenten appeal every year for vouchers. But what they have suggested is that every parish generates their own income to pay for the vouchers, and that's not going to happen at the moment because parish income is down as it is, and then the voucher scheme is very unlikely.
Hugh, sorry, Hugh, could I just emphasise the point that David made in our visit, which was the vouchers and the very important work that we've done as the Circle in making a financial contribution to enable the school to purchase those vouchers. And it's those vouchers, I think, David, that you were telling us was the point to really preserve the dignity of the families, because that to them is the key thing that will really help them through this process. So it's the financial element that, I didn't want to give the impression that we were just going to rush around and putting stuff in a food bank. It's the main plus point is that by not paying for our Catenian meals, we are able to give a contribution into the voucher scheme.
Yeah.
I think if the Catenians as a whole, because you're represented nationally tonight, aren't you? Which is incredible. But if the Catenians as a whole have a fundraising arm, which you obviously do, then if you were to focus your fundraising into providing vouchers to schools or to parishes at the moment, I really think that's the way forward at the moment, because food banks are good and they are doing a job. But if you really want to have a specific niche, as Caritas do now, and they are really, really appreciated by all Catholic schools and by all of the churches, because they are directly affecting. And the priests are saying how much they appreciate having the vouchers, because they've been giving cash to and they've been a little bit wary about that before as to where that's going. By giving a voucher to Sainsbury's, it can still be misused, of course, but they know it's going to predominantly good causes. So it might be something you want to adopt potentially as a Catenian way forward, potentially.
Well, no, what you said there, David, because we've got people not just locally from Harrow here, as you say, we've got people who are on our national committee here. We've also got people from other parts of the country as well. So it's a message that's been well received. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, please? What's the difference between Catenian money buying a Tesco or a Morrison's voucher and that money buying a Caritas voucher? Does it make any difference to you, David?
No, it's the same thing. It'll be the same thing.
Same thing. Right. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. Well, on the basis that David is now starting to look hungry and tired, I think we really ought to let him go.
Yes.
To thank him most sincerely for what I knew. A very moving presentation, because there's all sorts of things you realise you don't know is going on just under the surface in an area of what appears to be relative affluence, and it isn't at all. So thank you for all you're doing. Thank you for all you will continue to do. And all being well, you'll be getting some more money from us in the very near future. Thank you for coming, and we will stay in touch with you.
Thank you for everything you do. Thanks for your good work. Take care.
Thank you. Good night.